Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. So today we're going to be talking about some writing productivity hacks. Since it's the new year, my guess is that a lot of people will have writing goals or maybe have goals to write more this year or be more productive this year. So I thought it would be worth talking about some writing strategies to become more productive. Now, ultimately, I think productivity is not the most important thing in writing. I think quality and enjoying your writing process is the most important thing. But if you want to up your productivity and you feel like you're in a good place with your writing practice to focus on that, these are some things that you can try. Number one is focusing on consistency rather than output. If you want to become more productive, I think the better thing to do is to build a consistent habit rather than just focusing on how much you're creating. I think you'll build a much more sustainable long-term habit if you focus on, say, writing every other day and really learn how to stick to that and be consistent rather than, say, setting a specific word count rule. It's easier to become burned out when it's all about reaching a specific output or a word count target. So I think it's better instead to just focus on consistency. That will probably lead to a higher output anyways, and you're less likely to burn yourself out. Tip number two is to tie writing to an existing habit. If you're struggling to build a consistent writing routine, try tying it to a habit that you've already created. This is one of the best ways to introduce new consistent habits into your life is by tying them to habits you already have. If there's something that you already do every single day, start writing after that thing. If you already go for a walk every single day at a certain time, make that your pre-writing walk and write as soon as you get home. I think it also helps to kind of sandwich writing between habits and rewards. Pick something that you already do every single day, then write, and then follow that up with a reward. Tip number three is to create associations. I think this can actually be really, really powerful. If you have associations that are tied to your specific writing project or just to writing in general, it can be way easier to kind of cue your brain into that mindset. For me, the big one is music. If I have songs that I associate with what I'm writing, listening to them immediately puts me into that headspace. So create associations with your writing project and it'll be way, way easier to get yourself into that mindset. If you immediately start thinking about your writing project every time you hear a specific song, then you can kind of count on using that song as an association to get you to start writing for the day. Tip number four is to focus on making the scenes as fun to write as possible. I think this is so important and often overlooked. In order to be productive, writing kind of has to be fun. If writing feels like a chore, you're just simply not going to want to do it. And I think one of the best ways to get around that is to find as much fun in the scenes themselves as possible. If a scene is boring you to write, make it more interesting, make it more exciting, add more tension. I like to focus on what I'm describing. If I feel like I'm just bored with the scene and it's not fun to write, I ask myself, okay, what would actually make this scene interesting? What can I describe? Some interesting specific details. Focus on making the words themselves and the scene itself interesting. That's going to create a more interesting scene to read in the end, and it'll be way more fun to write. Whenever I feel kind of stuck, I just really challenge myself to find fun in the scene itself and the writing itself, and I think that that is actually one of the best ways to up your productivity. Tip number five is to start tracking your procrastination habits. Everyone procrastinates, we all do it. It's really easy to fall into habits of procrastination. And so I think one of the best ways to get out of that is to start tracking your procrastination. From now on, every time you catch yourself procrastinating, write down what it was that you were using to procrastinate. Once you're aware of these things, don't let yourself do those things before writing. If there's something you always use to procrastinate, don't let yourself do that thing before writing. If you always find yourself procrastinating by, going on social media, save that for after writing. You can use that as your daily reward. Or if you find yourself distracted by other work tasks or errands, try to set a time in the day to be done those things and instead switch to writing. Say after 7 p.m., I'm gonna put away work and move into writing. It can be easy to do that, especially if you work from home. It can be really, really easy to kind of just keep working and never be done with the workday. So kind of try and set a limit, and that's kind of when you're done work and now it's time to start writing. We do have a video on how to balance writing and working from home that you can check out if that's something that you're trying to find a balance between. The next tip is to create designated writing time. This is a very classic tip for how to write more, but I think it's really important if you struggle to find time to write. If you feel like it's hard to just motivate yourself to start writing kind of in the moment whenever you have time, it's better to try and set aside designated time for writing. That can be after a certain point in the day, like I just mentioned, or blocking out certain points in the week. I think it also helps to remember that even if you set aside designating writing time to kind of remove the pressure from that, just because you set aside 2 hours on a certain day, even if you're really busy and that's the only 2 hours you have, know that it's okay if you don't produce much. It's the intention of setting aside that time and being consistent and actually sticking with it that's going to help in the long run. Not every single day is going to be a good writing day, but it's better to try and set aside that time rather than not setting aside that time at all. The next step is not to multitask. It can be so easy to fall into a habit of always multitasking, but multitasking is going to be maybe the worst thing for your writing productivity. I'm really bad at multitasking, and by that I mean I'm always multitasking. For some reason, my brain just wants to be doing 8 things all the time, but that just makes it really hard to get the one thing you're trying to do actually done, especially with writing where you're trying to get into a flow state to the point where the words can just flow naturally. That's going to be hard to do if you're swapping between a conversation with someone else and work and social media. It's going to be really challenging to actually focus and get into that headspace. So really challenge yourself not to multitask. Turn off your Wi-Fi if you need to, put your notifications on silent, put your phone away, because multitasking is going to make it so hard to get anything done. But the worst thing is that when we multitask, we kind of trick ourselves into feeling more productive. Oh, look, I'm doing 8 things at once, when really you're not doing any of them well. So put everything else aside, especially if this is your designated writing time. Put everything else aside and just focus on writing. And finally, create accountability. It can be hard to produce work if we're only accountable to ourselves. I think joining a writing group is one of the best ways to stay accountable. I would highly recommend finding some kind of writing group, or a workshop group is fantastic because there are kind of deadlines you have to meet. It can be way more motivating when you have some level of accountability to other people rather than just to yourself. Plus, it makes the act of writing more social, less lonely, and you have people to get feedback from. So I cannot recommend finding a writing group highly enough. I think it's great for productivity, it's great for motivation, it's great for morale, it's great for creativity, it's great for feedback. It's ultimately, I think, one of the best tools there is as a writer. So find other writers, connect with other writers, whether in person or through social media, and it'll just be a huge benefit to your overall writing practice and to your productivity as well. So those are a few ways to make your writing process more productive and get more done. What are your favorite writing productivity hacks, things that really help you? We've also got a video on how to write faster with some more productivity hacks, so I'll leave a link to that as well. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Friday on this channel. Until next time, bye!